Shalom Uvracha. Okay, we're dedicating this shir to a very dear yid, a dear friend, a student who passed away earlier today. Yoshua Aryeh Leib, HaKohen, Carr, and his neshama should be go up into higher and higher places in Gan Eden, and to dwell with all the tzaddikim, to dwell with all the righteous ones, and Yitzur B'tzur Achayim, to be wrapped up in the eternal rock of life. And we're praying for him, for his journey at this time. It's a very important point that we need to know that life is eternal. When a person leaves this world, it's called that they're nifter. Nifter comes from the word potter. Potter means you can't do mitzvahs anymore. That's why you say, "Oh, I'm potter from a mitzvah. I'm potter." It means nifter. It means that now they've moved to a place that there's no ability to do the mitzvahs, and we're just talking about this. That's why we talk on our tzitzis in the cemetery, because all that a person wants to do when they leave this world is mitzvahs, but they can't do that anymore. But us here in the land of the living, that's why we just screamed out for 8 days straight, Lo yamesim yahalaluka, v'loi kol yarde duma. Those that have passed on, they cannot praise you, God. And those that have descended to Duma, that angel of death, they're not able to praise you anymore because they're not in that world that we're in here. The world of mitzvahs, the world of praise is here. However, there is a way that they could change their position. And that's if they made a difference in this world and people are inspired by their memory to do mitzvahs. So those that live the life and we remember them, so their spiritual position up in heaven is raised higher and higher. So we're dedicating our learning, and we want to feel moved. We want to feel touched by our friend and by his memory. He was a Kohen, and he would love doing Birkus Kohanim here. And a Kohen's mission is to love peace. Oyev Shalom, Roidev Shalom, Oyev Sabrius Mekarven LaTorah, and to help people learn Torah. And he loved learning, and he loved giving people blessings as the priest that he is. And we're going to be learning in his memory to help him go up higher and higher. So we're in a new chapter of our world of deveykus. So Yoshua Aryeh Leib, Carr, HaKohen should have an ilui neshmasai. Amen. We're now going to talk about more intimate feelings of getting closer to Hashem. On page Tzadi Zayin. Also, it's important that when a person passes on, that they know that what that person experiences is absolute clarity, that God is the reality. So our job is to do that down here when we're able to do it with free will. So Perek Gimel, we've really basically done half of our project on deveykus. We're going to finish the last half. And it just gets deeper and deeper and more beautiful, and then move on in our Sefer. But now we're going to talk about more intimately feeling God's presence. Hargoshas ha'or v'tanaga deveykus, actually feeling close to God. And when you feel close to God, there's a pleasure that comes out of that. Those are two things. One, there's a feeling that God is in my life. And then two is the happiness that brings me that God is in my life. You could see that you could have one, but maybe not the other. I could have a feeling that God is in my life, but it's not that alive that it brings this great pleasure. So there are levels of going higher and higher. The ultimate level is a feeling of tremendous pleasure that God is in my life. That's why when you see tzaddikim, there's a feeling like they're really happy all the time. There's a feeling like they're so locked into reality that they're very happy. And the tzaddikim are always laughing. We still have to listen to that clip together. But there's a feeling that the tzaddikim, you always see them, they're like something, there's a happiness. That's why one of the most important mitzvahs is to be happy. And one of the greatest prohibitions is to be sad. To be really sad, depressed. Sadness used in the right way is appropriate. It's very appropriate to be sad when somebody passes away, because we miss them and we're lacking that feeling. But it's not depression. Depression is a lack of hope. Sadness is taking a feeling of missing and longing and feeling it and crying and being there, but it brings hope and it brings greater closeness. It's very important we learn how to experience our feelings, which we're going to talk a lot more in the Darkecha, because in our generation we have a hard time really feeling feelings in a healthy way. In general, feeling is kind of like out. We don't really feel things that much anymore, and we want to feel. We want to learn to feel. So hargoshes hatanag, feeling that pleasure of being close to God. Hine etzem deveykus. You know what deveykus is, says the Rebbe? Hargoshes hashayches ve'achibur la'Hashem yisborach. You know what deveykus is? If we sum up everything we're learning right now, it's very simple. It's that I feel like I have a connection to God. That's what deveykus is. Somebody says, you want to have deveykus? What does he really mean? He means, is God part of my life? I feel that God is relevant. It's like it's real to me. Not a concept. It's not a subject in university, God. 101. No, it's a relationship. Like we say 1,000,001 times, Judaism is not a religion, it's a relationship. I have a relationship to God. There are two types of deveykus. Ha'achasi deveykus shaloi b'murgash. The first type of deveykus is a deveykus where I don't necessarily feel anything powerfully inside of me cooking up. Shemakr b'hakar b'hira b'seichel b'pnimius alev b'mitzias Hashem yisborach v'shehu imoy avaloi margish es zeh b'hargosha chaya b'lev. The first stage is, I know there's a God. I've gone through the intellectual awareness that God is real, beyond the reasonable doubt, plausible, probable. It's almost intellectually a dishonest, if you will, to try to take a non-God position intellectually. Extreme dishonesty with all the evidence in front of us. So I know there's a God, and I live with that awareness, but I don't always feel it. Now, it's still a good thing that you know there's a God, and you live with that reality, and you make decisions based on that, but it's not like I like that word the Rebbe uses, chaya. It's not alive inside of me. There's not like a feeling of, it's real. God is very real, very, very real, that I feel it. I know it, but I don't feel it. V'hashniya, he deveykus b'murgash. The second level of deveykus is when you feel it. You walk around with a feeling of God coursing through you. It's real. The first stage it's real, but you don't necessarily act on it. It's more intellectual. The second stage, you feel it very deeply. You get this all the time. A person that they know something, and they go through the motions of it, but it's just not alive with them. They might do a mitzvah, they might keep Shabbos because they know that I have to, because God said to. But the Shabbos is not like alive. They put on tefillin because I know that God told me I have to do that. But are your tefillin alive? Are they alive? I'm coming to learn Torah. Because I know I've spent enough time in Eshet Torah to know that it's the right thing and the responsibility of every single person that God created to learn the Torah that He gave us. So therefore I'm doing it. But is it alive? That's the second level of deveykus. It's alive. Shemargish esaora deveykus b'hargasha cham b'boyeres b'leiv b'kli hargasha. My heart, which is the source of all my feelings. Hashem is alive. He's burning in my heart. My tefillin is not just put on a bunch of boxes. My tefillin is lit up. When a wife is lighting the Shabbos candles, it's not, I better light the candles because that's what you do. She's crying by the candles, so she's alive with the lighting of the candles. Her whole life depends on these candles. It's very real. And generally, when a person has the merit of feeling God in this way, generally, when a person has reached a level where he starts feeling God, he'll start to really enjoy the mitzvahs also. The first level where he knows what he has to do, he's not necessarily feeling such a geschmack when he's putting on his tzitzis. But Rabbi Dovber, when he passes a mezuzah, he's like doing somersaults and jumping jacks. Because God is so alive inside of him that he knows I'm thinking about a mitzvah temidius of Yichud Hashem by touching the mezuzah. It's the greatest pleasure there is. I remember once when he told me, he has such a mastery of explaining ideas. So the Gemara says that everything that is non-kosher in the world, there's a kosher equivalent. And it talks about different things, like there's a notorious PIG, and then there's like types that you could actually make, like faux. There's ways to make it where it actually tastes like the same, etc. There's ways to do. So he said, and he's very open about this. He said he used to be the greatest DJ in London, England. And he said, when the beat dropped and the place went wild. So it's a certain feeling of excitement. And then he said, when I came to understand what a Jewish wedding is, at that moment, when the husband steps on the glass under the chuppah, the beat drops. You understand what I'm saying? And at that moment, the place goes wild. And the excitement and everything that was built up. This is a couple that has never touched each other ever. They haven't even been alone ever. And at that moment, that he takes her hand for the first time, the electricity of that moment, and all the excitement of everyone, just what's gone into making that marriage, and the holding back and the excitement. At that moment, and the beat drops at that second, he said, whatever was happening in London is nothing. It's nothing. It's garnished. So the pleasure of that, and we have to learn to see this in every one of our mitzvahs, our whole life, that the pleasure of what the Torah life offers is unparalleled. Unparalleled. If we work on deveykus. That's why we're all here together. Next page. The first level of deveykus is hargashas ha'ara ben nafsha. You feel something inside of you. Hashem, I feel you. Shemargish es ora Hashem is b'betoichai. I feel like good. When does that happen? You ever learn Torah and you could be like right now, and you're feeling like there's something good inside of me. It's something I feel. There's a movement. There's a light. There's something beautiful. Or when you sing a niggin. When Yosef Karduna was playing 2 nights ago, so I was speaking to Bear's father. I had the Sosa sitting beside him. And he was telling me, he's like, I'm understanding, a lot of what's happening, and also not every single word, but it's working. Because I'm singing it, and it's so good. It's working. So you start singing something, and it's good, a holy song, there's a feeling like this, that something comes in you, and you're in it. Or when you go into a holy place, when you go into Itchy Meyer's, you ever been into Itchy Meyer's chamber, just you, and like the door closes and the Rebbe's just sitting there at the table? You have to ask Aaron Schaefer, he knows all about that. And all of a sudden it's like, you feel the hashra, you feel the shechina is mamish there. I'm going to Rav Chaim. You feel like there's a light here, there's something very special. Shekol elu heim hargashas amitius. These are real feelings. These are holy, real feelings. Shenafshe nidbekes be'or Hashem yisporach v'hainu shemargish as mitzias hakadoisha b'tchusha chaya b'leiv. God is like in you. You feel like the movement. Let's go back to the singing. When you're singing something really good, there's a feeling like there's a light. We use light always as an example of relationship. Something is like in you, is moving. Like Will's getting married tonight. Could you imagine the feelings underneath the chuppah of just the excitement of like, I'm about to do a mitzvah, I'm marrying somebody, and just the feeling of like the light coursing through you, of this is so real. So that's you're alive at that moment. You're not standing under the chuppah thinking like, so intellectually, I know I'm about to do something called getting married. Okay, let me just process that. Okay, check box. I'm about to do that. Make sure that I, do all the necessary steps, and then I will be, I will have fulfilled that duty, and I will have been yotzi, this thing called marriage. Okay, now I'm going to go dance because that's part of the ceremony, and now it's time to, I'm going to stop dancing because you're alive. You're alive. But how many of us, when we go to put on tefillin, like, okay, I guess I'm going to put on tefillin because that's what you do. How many of us put on tefillin like we're mamish at our own wedding? Yeah. Oh my goodness, I love Aisha Tayr. When you're doing that, it's real. It's real. That's what we're going towards, is I want you guys to start thinking, any mitzvahs that you're going to be doing today, am I doing it just like intellectual deveykus because this is what you do? Or do I understand that God is coursing through this moment? And therefore it's like I'm under my chuppah. Because there's nothing different than that. Under your chuppah is a mitzvah mamish of bringing Hashem into this world, and you're alive with it. You're doing the same thing when you put on tefillin. You're doing the same thing when you're learning Torah. It's a tremendous thing. Certainly there's going to be many, many, many levels of this. In the beginning you might feel a little bit. You might have like a spark of something. If you have like a moment when you learn Torah and you understood the thesis, or you got it. You ever have that in the Gemara? Like, you guys are now by Shlomi Schwartz. You got it. I got it. Like, wow. I saw that move in the Gemara. That was good. It wasn't just the accomplishment of, I am smart, I figured it out. It's that, there's something that felt good. Hashem was talking to me. The more that you merit, you're going to start feeling like the mitzvahs are coursing inside of you. When you keep any mitzvah, any bit of halacha, not only the mitzvahs of doing, but also the loisas of refraining from something I should not be doing. Until you get to a point that God is so real to you, it's like He's right here. God is real. He's right here, and I feel it. Like when a person comes home to his wife, he doesn't come home and then he's thinking in his mind like, I'm now going to, say hi to my wife. Okay, I'm going to register the fact she's standing in front of me. Okay, let me register that. I'm now going to, say something. That's just weird. You're together. You're alive. She's real. It's a natural, living, alive relationship. It's, you know what I'm saying? It's.
Don't put your kids to bed, like it is now my time.
Okay, yeah, time for bed. Okay, kids, yeah, okay, let me just, okay, I better...
Using story.
Yeah, okay, now, we're about to start the story section of the night because that's what you're supposed to do. You're in the story, you're like, you lose yourself in it because it's alive. You can lose yourself in tefillin, you can lose yourself in davening, in learning. The tzaddikim would learn, they would forget where they were. The big tzaddikim would walk around Yerushalayim, they'd bump into light pole, like they're so in it. That's why it's so discouraged to have phones like in the base medrash. Because they're like bazookas for your attention. When you're in the Torah, Hashem is with you. It's like, if I wouldn't have my phone on the table when I'm having dinner with my wife, then what's the difference when I'm having, so to speak, dinner kaviyachol with Hashem? There's an intimacy here. So we want to learn to think that way.
But it's kind of different, the relationship. I don't know, I feel like sometimes I do have to do that check where like, okay, I'm standing in front of the Almighty. So how would you make it more natural?
So that's what we're going to work on. We're going to take it from the head, and then we're going to make it into feelings. It's going to start with an intellectual awareness, but then the more that I have total clarity on that as a reality, it's more real to me than seeing a person standing in front of me. It's more real. More real. You've had a moment, sometimes people experience this like on Yom Kippur. At the end of Yom Kippur, God being real is more real than any bagel and Lux and cream cheese you're about to eat, when you go downstairs to have a break the fast. Somebody says, like, you want to, what's for break the fast? And you're like, what? What's a bagel? Like a bagel and cream cheese? What's a bagel? God is all there is. It's so clear. We get those moments where it's so clear what it's all about. And we want to increase them. We want to have more and more of them. When you really start making this relationship much more real, it gives you life. You jump out of bed. You're alive with things. You make God more real than all the Pepsi Colas and all the Netflix episodes in the whole world. All the little these little eye candies of the world. That being close to God is the pleasure that has no comparison. Because anything that you think has some pleasure in the world or some life force is only a spark that's coming out of the ultimate pleasure. So what would you rather have? The ultimate pleasure, go to the source material, or have just a little spark? If you think the spark, the ice cream cone is so delicious, like, imagine going, that's like one spark. Imagine, and that little spark, that tiny little spark of the ice cream is, you're enjoying that, which by the way, that's also God, the part of the ice cream that you're enjoying. Well, imagine, where did the spark come off? The sun. Well, if that's pleasurable, what would it look like if you jumped into the sun? It's a lot of pleasure. You know what I'm saying? By the way, that's why you need mitzvahs, because mitzvahs protect you from just being totally obliterated in that much pleasure. Which that was a big thing by tzaddikim, is that they jumped into the sun and they were living in max pleasure. They had to make sure that they were doing certain mitzvahs that kept them buffered. I imagine the rocks, the faces going by, and it's the sun, and they have they need some protection, they're going into the sun of pleasure. Mamish. So the mitzvahs create this buffering. That's why make sure you do mitzvahs in this world. Siyat d'shmaya. Our dear friend, our beloved Yoshua Aryeh Leib, Carr, Zichron Levracha, his memory should be a blessing for all of us, and Hashem should make an ilu neshama. It should be a consolation for all the families. And B'ezrat Hashem, we should see now, Bila Mavis Lanetzach, the end of all death, should all be obliterated from the world with the resurrection of the dead. And Mashiach Tzidkeinu b'mher v'yameinu Omen. Kol Tuv.